I want to present you Dr. Thomas Allnut. He has a PhD in biology from University of Pennsylvania. He has worked with National Science Foundation as program manager of the SBIR program. He's an entrepreneur himself. He is a SBIR reviewer, so he covers all the bases. So please, Dr. Allnut.
It's nice to be here. I want to first say that Juan stole all of my lines. He saw my presentation earlier, and his was much more interesting. And he gave me the most boring thing to talk about. What he's asked me to talk about is kind of demystify writing a proposal. Can you think of anything more boring? I can't. So I'm going to try to make it less boring by having you guys participate in this. You've got to ask questions, or this is going to be so dry, it's going to kill you. Okay. The first thing I want to do is, why would you write an SBIR proposal? I've been working with the trust now
3 or 4 years, I think, at least.
At least it's many more years than that, because I worked with the trust before the COVID-19. This is the first time I've come down since the pandemic, and I'm really impressed by the infrastructure they're building around getting these proposals done, and that's really important for Puerto Rico and for everyone else. In working for the trust, I'm talking to a lot of folks who are putting proposals in, and one of the things they say is it's free money. I know Juan talked about it, but I'll get it again. It's not free money. And what it is a lot of work. You say, Juan told you a month. To make a competitive proposal, writing might take a month, but you need to go out and get people interested, know why you have it, and you need to write a proposal that will convince commercial reviewers that this is a valuable thing for a business to develop, a small business to develop. And you have to develop a strategy for making that technology real and getting it into the marketplace. And that all has to be in your proposal. So it's thought. You have to think about, okay, what am I going to do? What needs to be done? And how am I going to get it into the marketplace? And so Juan has asked me to talk about the NSF. I've been funded through the NSF quite a few times. And then I was actually recruited by the NSF to be a program manager. So I was there for 3 years, actually working while Juan was there, leading the biotechnology cluster of the SBIR program at NSF's SBIR program. And it's a fascinating milieu, because at the NSF, anybody who is industry gets pretty much shuffled into the SBIR program. They go in, they say, I have this technology, and they tell the program manager in biological sciences, and he sends it down to my office when I was there. And so everything that is industry funnels down, when it comes to the NSF, funnels down through the SBIR program. And so the SBIR program is the Small Business Innovation Research Program, and its sister program is the Small Business Technology Transfer Research Program. Two key things here. Small business, so it has to be a small business, and it has to be a business. This is not an academic program. It is not. So don't put an academic, even the NIH now is starting to be that way, guys. So I assume Marcus will be talking about it in the afternoon. If you come in with something that is academic and is 15 years from being a commercial product, or has no ability to be a commercial product, it's not going to get funded. Even NIH now. They're under pressure to show that this money that was spent by the small businesses is actually going to do something, and is going to impact the nation, and I say the nation here. So part of what I'm telling you folks when I'm working with the trust is that when you send me a proposal and all you're talking about is Puerto Rico, that's not going to get funded. So what you have to say, if you're, for instance, working on a rural coastal community technology that will help a rural coastal community, don't say Puerto Rico. You can say it, I'm going to validate it in Puerto Rico, but talk about Louisiana, talk about Florida, talk about other rural communities in the nation. And the nation is the whole US, not just Puerto Rico. So don't be provincial when you're doing this. Talk about the big impact it's going to make on the nation and potentially the world. Because that's what they're looking for. They're not focused just on Puerto Rico. And I heat this again and again with proposals that Juan sends me to review. So think hard about your technology, but think big. How it's going to impact the world, how it's going to impact the nation, and if it's only going to impact, you know, an island in the Caribbean, probably not the SBIR program is not where you want to go. If you're going to do an SBIR, you have to think strategically. As Juan said, there's 10 or 11 agencies who have SBIR funds, 8 agencies that have STTR funds. You went over the difference in STTR and SBIR? You did?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I mean, the STTR requires a university partner. The SBIR, they don't care. All the money goes directly to the small business. The small business doles it out to its partners. You can have a university partner in an STTR and an SBIR. You're required to do in the STTR. But the money comes to the company. This is not a university. And so this is a big issue with university professors is, you know, they write this thing and they try to be everything through the university. And the university has nothing to do with this money. It is your money as a small business. And the university has to abide by that. So when you're coming in and you have these 10 programs and you have an idea, you have to fit it into topics that are available for that particular agency. I'm going to talk about the NSF this morning. The NSF has very, very broad topics. And what they are looking for is translational and transformative research. They do not want to fund incremental research, but they do, it's research. Again, this is research. You have to have a fundamental question, and I keep getting proposals that are not research. They are just, I already have the product, I already know it works, I want money to get it in. Or it's basically, the guy called me up when I was a program officer, said, I want a truck. Why do you want a truck? Because I need it for my business. You know, that's not how this works. They're funding research to prove the feasibility of your technology. And once that feasibility is done, you need, and especially for NSF, you need to have a plan to get extra money coming in, not just being on a proposal. Oh, I'm going to write another proposal. This is not academia. You don't just keep writing proposal after proposal. What they want you to do is feasibility in phase 1, to a prototype, or enough research is done to get a venture or a person to come in and invest more money and to get that into the marketplace. And that's what they're interested in. They're not interested in, I'm going to continue research. I actually work for an algal biofuels company, a small business, and we were competing with a very big company, and the DOE gave this company the money we should have gotten to develop an algal biofuels plant. They got the plant, they built it, and then the next thing they did is they said, okay, DOE, give us the money to run it. And the DOE said, that's not what, you build the plant, you got the plant, make money on it. That's what you want, and that's what the SBIR programs want you to do. They don't want you to come back for another grant. They want you to come back and say, hey, we have this product in the market. And the NSF is at the forefront of this. They have something called the I-Corps, which I believe runs here as well. And what the I-Corps, you know, I'll back up a little bit. When I first came into Martech Biosciences in the 80s, we were NSF funded, and we were NIH funded through SBIR programs. And we hid everything. We kept it in. You're very quiet. You don't tell anybody. And the I-Corps is just the opposite. What the I-Corps does is it has you go out and find out what's going on. So I don't know how many SBIRs I got in the early 90s that went nowhere because the product, there wasn't a product there. What the I-Corps is trying to do right now is have you go out and discover what the product is or what is needed and answer that need. If you're trying to develop a need, it is possible. And actually my first company did that. We spent probably $2.5 million in SBIR funds to develop an infant formula additive. It took us 18 years to get it into the market. You know, it would be nicer if we had gone and talked to the people surrounding that and said, is it going to take 18 years? The CEO of this company was pulling his hair out, which he didn't have much to spare. And you know, he said, I'll never do missionary work again to get a product into the market. It was just too much work. But what the I-Corps does is it sets you up so you know that going into that. And so you can write a program to convince the NSF that you're ready and you know what the hurdles will be. People don't really like the SBIR solicitations. And every single agency puts out a solicitation. They call it different things. They call it an RFA, a BAA, a NOFO, whatever, more sort of. The government loves acronyms. They just love them. It's amazing. Yeah. The nice part about the SBIR is focused on small businesses, and there is no written rule about how long it has to exist. Matter of fact, until recently, you didn't have to have the business form until you were given the award. It's changed. Now you have to have a business form. But to form a business is easy. It's very, very easy. These people, SBDC and people like that will help you. It's essentially filing a form and paying the fee. Now, once you get the business formed and you want to get a grant from the National Science Foundation or, say, NIH or anybody else, you need to convince them it's a real business, meaning if you have just one guy who is a business major who is trying to make heart valves, for instance, you're not going to go very far. But if if you come in and you say you're a university professor, you have some work that's been done, and you have advisors that will do on your business side, what you have to do is you have to convince the reviewers that if they give you this money, that you can execute. And the SBDC people can probably hook you up to some potential business mentors. If they can't, there's a number of agencies that are out there that will get you some business mentors that will basically work for nothing. Usually they're retired business executives that are bored to tears and they want to do something. So what you want to do when you write your proposal is build an infrastructure around. That's why I-Corps is so nice, because you've gone out and talked to people. Build infrastructure around your startup business. It can be one person. Yeah, it's fine. And you could be 2 days old, but you still have to be registered in SAM, right? SAM.gov is basically the pay system for the federal government. And they now require, when you're filing an SBIR, to be registered in SAM. Don't pay anybody any money to register in SAM. I say this because there are very aggressive people out there trying to get you to pay money for them to essentially register you in SAM. My sister is an artist, and she was talking about it, and I go, it's free. She goes, don't tell me that. She just paid $500. Somebody just ripped her off. And so SAM is essentially like, I'm going to use this repetitively, it's like TurboTax. You open it up, and you fill out all this stuff. And you do that once a year. It's free. Don't pay anybody. I keep saying that because if you do it today and register today, next year they'll start sending you, oh, you need to redo your SAM today, and here, click on this button. And it doesn't have .gov behind it. It's not .gov. It is some jerk who is able to get into SAM. It's a public document, tells you what the companies exist and when you registered. And these people will try to sell you a service that doesn't exist. And they'll charge you $500 for it. Do not pay for SAM. I diverted. I apologize. Okay, where were we? Just on the structure. So every single agency will have a solicitation of some sort. That agency will tell you what they will fund. NSFs are very broad. USDAs are very broad. NSF only funds pretty much research, straight research. It's got to have commercial value. USDA funds research as well through their SBIR, but they have some, I would say, soft research topics and some hard research topics. So you got to know what it is you're applying for. USDA has some very socially focused topics that look on small business, they look on rural communities and look at small and mid-sized farms, for instance, and those are very socially oriented. And so they will get you can have a softer science. The air and water topic, on the other hand, is absolutely hard science. So if you come in with a touchy-feely, I'm going to help the world, technology that really isn't hard science, but would have a big social impact, and you put it in air and water, you're dead. It's gone. But you put it in the rural communities, it might go through if it has a social impact. Ask questions, you look perplexed. No. She's going, what is he talking about? Okay. But so my point is you have to go and look at the solicitation. You have to understand what it is that they're interested in. Now, the DOE, obviously, they're interested in what? Energy. And if you're going to a DOE, they will tell you what they want. And you have to apply to the right topic. The NIH, they do have some broad topics, but they're also very focused. And if you are an algal, I was in a small business that was a animal feed additive business. We were very high tech, but the CEO insisted on applying to NIH because guess why? NIH has a $400,000 to $1 million payout. And at the time, NSF had a $150,000 payout. And he kept making me write these stupid grants. And I kept saying, we're an animal feed company. Why would the NIH fund this? Oh, if you write a good enough grant, it'll come through. Well, all you do, I've been on review panels, they click on your website, boom, it comes up with a bunch of fish, and they go, unless there's zebrafish, you're not going to get funded. So it's a lot of work. I mean, this guy made me write grant after grant after grant, and it's cost of time because I couldn't work in the lab. I'm writing these grants. It was a waste of time. So understand your agency, understand what your topic is, understand what your technology can do, and where your topic is, and then you have a very good chance of getting it. Now it's only 15%, but do a good job, it's better. What's happened now in the NSF is, because of I-Corps, I think, they are getting stronger and stronger letters of support. In NSF, you are limited to 3 letters of support. And because of I-Corps, these guys are going out and talking to potential customers. They're talking to potential industry strategic partners, and they're getting good letters, and that's who you're competing against. Yes, Jim.
I have a question. How important is it for a company or a project to contact the program officers of an agency before they start submitting or writing their proposal?
I think it's less important at the NSF. Because the NSF is pretty clear and they're pretty broad. If you have any questions of your applicability of your technology to the topic, call them. I think the NSF less so because they're so broad, anything applies. But if you're talking about NIH especially, the military, they have very specific things they want, the DoD. And when you apply, you should apply to them. If you have an interesting technology you think has a military application and you cannot find a specific topic that matches it, call them. And they could do they could do 3 things. Say, you're an idiot. 2, they can say, wow, I love that. Or 3, they could say, wait till the next time around, I will write a topic for you.
Do you advise for... Thank you very much. Omar Vélez Lopez from the Ponce Health Science University. So we're developing a product which is a polymer, have different applications, and it can go through different agencies like Department of Defense, NIH. So and it can be funded in many of these. So do you advise to do multiple applications? I know this is a lot of work by doing the grant. Do you advise that? How the federal government see this? What is the advice for me?
I don't think there's any negative to making multiple applications, but realize it's not cut and paste. There's nothing that reviewers like less than to be going through an NSF review proposal and saying, we really know that the NIH is interested in this. And it happens repetitively. So, I mean, we have computers now, search for NIH before you put it in, just change all the NIHs to NSFs, right? And so make sure you target it. An NIH proposal, like right now, is totally different than an NSF proposal. I think Marcos is going to talk about the NIH proposals in the afternoon. I was going to do the NSF. I'm still blabbering on other stuff, right? But I'm going to go quickly through it, but it's boring, so that's why I want to do this. Multiple submissions are fine And actually, because you only get a 15% chance, I think it's fantastic. And you might find a better fit in a different agency. You just didn't know that. Now, she was talking about, talk to a program officer. They might say this is a great fit. I'm getting to you in a minute. It might be a great fit. But the reviews, I'm talking about the NSF review too, but it's not perfect. It's pretty good, but it's not perfect. So they do sometimes make error. You might have a great technology and it might get turned down for either by more competitive proposals or something else. And if it gets taken up by NIH but not NSF, that's great. If it takes up by both of them, that's a great problem too. You say, hey, I'm gonna take NIH, it's got more money, right? But you can't do them both. The caveat is you can apply to 6 agencies. I don't see how you could do that, but if you could find a topic that's 6, you could apply to 6 of them, you can't take all 6, and it's a lot of work. And the NSF proposal is very different than the DOE proposal, is very different than the DOD proposal. So realize what you're getting into when you do that. One.
Well, one of the help that we provide is you're going to get there, so I'm sorry, I'm going ahead. There's a template for it, sort of an elevator pitch, which is a misnomer.
All my talk.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to give it's a misnomer. But we use it as a tool to address what Tom said, that how to present things the right way, because calling a program director is very difficult. And if you do not have a concise idea, they will not answer your call again.
Well, and some of them just don't answer your call, period. I mean, just to be honest, there are some program officers that just don't want to talk to you, and some do. And some think it's fun, and some are kind of shy, and they're more introverted, and they don't want to talk to you. So it just happens. Usually they'll answer emails.
We do. We connect you through. I mean, the first thing we had about last week, I was at the SBIR STTR conference. The first thing they told us is we need that contact with the clients, with the people. That's the first step that you need to do. So it could be difficult for you to get to them, but we can get to them. That's what we do. We connect you with them to have those meetings. I have clients right here that I have connected with the different programs. That's the very first step. We don't want you to waste your valuable time in a proposal that maybe you can apply for another type of grant, and maybe it's not SBIR, STTR. They do give you about, and I can tell you this, they say it's 5 minutes. I've had program managers that tell me, I have 5 minutes, that's it. You have 5 minutes to put your idea, all of your hard work, 5 minutes over the phone or a video call, that's it, 5 minutes.
That's why the NSF pitch is so useful, guys. I mean, it's a one-page summary of what your innovation is, what your commercial value is, and then who would be interested. So it's really nice to get that pitch out of the way so you can tell them quickly. And I can tell you, as a program officer, I answered the phone. I don't think Juan did, but I answered the phone, and I talked to them. Some guys would go on for hours and hours, and you go, I got a stack of 80 proposals here. I do not have that amount of time. And so that's why people stop answering. So be prepared. Tell them what your innovation is. If it fits, it fits. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And the nice part about the NSF is you say, it fits. Now, sometimes the fit is not technological. Sometimes the fit is where your technology is. For instance, the NSF does not fund incremental improvements in your technology. So I have this platform, the typical thing is I have this platform technology, and I'm applying to, actually I had a grant this way. The guy applied to me, and it was a way to process some material into energy. And so the material was hay. And so the USDA, he said, I'm applying to, he had another grant, didn't say it was in conflict, same exact technology, applying it to sawdust. Okay, so I called up the USDA again. I told him, asked him what the program officer of the USDA, and I said, what is this technology and he told me what it was. It's the exact same technology, just a different feedstock. And I said, well, that's a conflict of interest. It's the same technology. So I called the guy up, and he was just livid. He was livid that I would, but you can't be funded twice. It's the same technology. It's both cellulosic. They're both cellulosic feedstocks. The only difference was what you added to it. And the program officers notice this. They're not stupid. These guys are very clever, and they know what they're doing. And so don't come in and try to fool them by doing the same thing, a platform, and doing essentially a very incremental change. They don't want to fund that. NSF does. Now, the flip side is, if you go to the right agency, they might. If you're going to the DoD wants a widget. They want a widget that answers this. If you already have the technology and you can make that widget, they will fund it because they want that widget. The NSF doesn't want your widget. They will not buy what you're producing, no matter what. You can produce 500 of these widgets and NSF won't buy them. What they want you to do is succeed in the marketplace. That's totally different. And if you're doing a DoD proposal and you're doing an incremental thing like that to make a product, and the DoD will buy it, make sure the DoD wants to buy a lot of it. Otherwise, you don't have a business, right? So they have a history of getting you to develop these expensive technologies. They'll pay you to get them done. Then they say these are secret, and you can't sell them anywhere on the marketplace. We're the only buyer. And oh, by the way, we don't want it right now. What does that do to your small business? It's gone. So think about that when you're doing it. So everybody's worried about how to put in a proposal. And so what Juan wanted me to do is just kind of go through the solicitation. This is the current NSF solicitation. And if you think of TurboTax, that's what this is. Has anybody used TurboTax? What this thing does is, if you scroll down to there's just the table of contents. There's the table of contents. You go to the table of contents. This thing's, going to be 27 to 150 pages long. But you go to the table of contents. It tells you it introduces what the program is all about. It tells you what the program does and how much the award will be, right? So it's pretty simple. The proposal preparation is what seems to kill everybody. So let's go to that. If you click on the proposal, I think it's a hot button. Isn't it? Yeah, okay. And what this does is very clearly say what needs to be in the proposal. Can you scroll to the next page? See, I don't have a presentation. I just have it. It just tells you step by step what has to be in the it's TurboTax. So the first one is the pitch, the project pitch. Now, in the NSF, they had a great innovation, which I love. As program officer, when Juan and I were there at 11:57 p.m. of the day before it was due, so the day it was due, we would get over 1,000 proposals. And they had no screen at all. What the NSF has done is now they require a project pitch, and the project pitch has to answer, you have the, oh yeah, it does, it tells you. The research, you have 500 words to talk about the innovation, 500 words to talk about the technical objectives, 250 about the market opportunities, and 250 about the company team. So it's essentially one page. You send it to the NSF, the program officer reads that, and the program officer says, yes, it's appropriate, send it in, or you get this nice little thing, this does not meet the technological validation or innovation necessary. Please, thank you for your submission. And basically, forget it, don't submit. And so that comes in, and that is part of, actually, once you're accepted, that's part of your proposal. That's the first page of the proposal, not excluding the cover sheet. Okay, so then you go down to the proposal itself. The proposal preparation, they tell you very succinctly every single, hello. They tell you that you have the project pitch first, and then they tell you every single section and what has to be in that section. They tell you how long that section has to be. So this is TurboTax. This is not hard to understand, and I keep getting this from some of the people that we're supporting. They don't read the solicitation. You have to read the solicitation. You have to answer what they ask you. It's TurboTax. Yes. How much money do I make? $25. Do I owe any tax? No. Here, they tell you exactly what you want. you want to have an introduction. Do you have an introduction and not tell them what the innovation is? No, you put right at the first line what your innovation is. Don't make the reviewer read 2 pages to find out what your innovation is. And that's a really common mistake from when you're writing a proposal, is they go out and they put all this introduction of how good the thing is, and you don't know what they're making. You know, so the first line should be what your innovation is and how you're changing the world, then read your introduction, and then restate what your innovation is, and then you jump into the research objectives. So in your proposal, you have a bunch of form pages with certifications. I'm actually going to pull up an old proposal of mine to go through. We'll go through this, but the certifications, you don't have to prepare for them. You just have to not lie. Project summary, these are 2 very short pieces. Broader technology, broader impacts, and technical impacts, right? Broader impacts, the NSF is very conscious of 2 things. Well, maybe 3 things. They want to have a commercial impact for the broader impacts, and that's very different than the typical academic broader impacts. However, they do take into account the typical academic proposal, which means, you know, the touchy-feely things. You know, it's diversity, equity, inclusion, how much it's going to change the world and make things better for populations. So broader impacts in the SBIR are slightly different than broader impacts in an academic grant. That means they care about the broader impacts on the nation and the world. If you are having people, if it helps people that are underrepresented now, put it into your broader impacts. They care about that. But you know, it's not the same. It's the commercial is the most important. If it does not have a commercial impact, they don't care about it.
Does the company have to be registered as a minority or woman-owned, or no?
Does it have to be?
While giving the proposal?
Yeah, the certification pages, you just check.
You need
It just checks.
does that give you brownie points? Is what I'm asking.
It gives you brownie points, but it won't get you through. As they like to say, crap is crap. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, it's brownie point crap or not. It's crap. If it's not a good proposal, it won't get it through. But as you maybe don't know, I will eventually get there. But there's the way it's reviewed is they have highly recommended, recommended, and do not fund. If it's in the do not fund, the brownie points won't get you anywhere. What happens with the brownie points is in the middle. It edges you more to funding than the other ones. I will say, if this thing has a huge impact, sometimes it really does get shot up due to the brownie points. Okay. Project description, this is your proposal. This is everything. And so then you have reference to all the a lot of other materials. So if you will click on the project description, this tells you exactly what has to be. This is TurboTax. This is not rocket science, folks, and it shouldn't be scary. Taxes are scary. It's something else, but it's basically 1, 2, 3. You have the elevator pitch, which you've already written, or you wouldn't be able to write this proposal. You have the commercial opportunity, 1 to 3 pages. I am helping Juan with some of his proposals, and you know the commercial section is often written by the business guy, who is also a marketing guy, and it's fluff. You know, I actually just helped him with a proposal, and it's a 15-page limit. The proposal was 25 pages long. I got almost all of that out of the commercial one because it was so much fluff. This is a trend, you know, it was a sales job. This is a sales job. You are selling the NSF that you have a technology that is going to have a commercial impact on the world, and it's good, and it will form a sustainable business, right? So it is a sales job, but it can't act like a sales job, because what you have sitting at that review panel are 2 different, well, maybe more than that, but at least 2 different sets of people. You have commercial reviewers who are looking hard at this to say, does this make any sense in the marketplace? And then you have technical reviewers who want to say, is this really an innovation? Do they actually know how to do this? And can they do it? And do they give me a good path to get there? So it's a sales job, but it can't look like a sales job. Because the technical guys are going to read this. They'll read the marketing section and they'll go, this is so much stuff. You know, it's just a bunch of fluff. And again, that 5 pages I got rid of was all fluff. And so the commercial opportunity is very important. All those points, turn them into subtopic headings, and answer every single one. And why do you do that? You do that because you're trying to get the reviewers through it. And I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Keisha. She is acting as a reviewer for NSF right now, right? And she goes, this is such hard work for $200. And I was supposed to be on a USDA panel today and yesterday, and Juan scheduled this thing, so I called up and said, I can't come. And they said, we'll do the reviews anyway. So I did 6 reviews, and I'm not even going to get paid for it.
It's a painful process.
It's a painful process.
But you enjoy it as well, and you learn a lot about the reviewing process and how we as service providers, we understand a lot better how we can help you to submit a better proposal. That's the way. That's why I started doing this. And literally, we're doing it for free. And sometimes we have to take, we were talking about that, we have to take time off from work just to do this. On our time, it takes a lot of time to go through each and one of those proposals. And what I would say as a recommendation, you eat, breathe, and sleep your project. That's what you do with it. I don't. Which means I know nothing about it. So when you explain it as if you were explaining it to a kindergartner. When I see things, and I do that with my clients, that I do not understand because I'm also a grant writer, and once I read their proposal, I'm like, what did you mean by this? What is that you're trying to say? Because that does not make any sense to me. They're like, no, but this means this and this means that. I'm like, well, you might want to try and explain it because you know it. I don't know it. Get your biggest critic, the person that criticizes you the most, to read it. Don't read it yourself after it's done. Get somebody else to read it because to you it's obvious, to somebody else it isn't. Get somebody who doesn't like you very much to read it. They will be honest with you. Trust me, they will be honest with you and they will tell you, no good. Or they will tell you, wow, this is amazing. And that's what I would recommend you do.
I mean, the NSF panel system is not great, but it is probably the best out there. And they try hard to get subject matter experts there that match, but the diversity of technologies that come in is unbelievable. I mean, so I have to reiterate, clearly talk about your technology, clearly show what the innovation is, because you could have a subject matter expert reviewing it who is slightly off to the side of your technology. And you have to make sure that person knows what it is you're talking about. And so clarity is important. Actually, that's one thing that Trust does, and I'm helping with it, is, we proofread your proposals. We don't write your proposals, as it was just said. We don't know your technology, you do. So you have to help us write get the technical part done. We will criticize that, and we will say, I have the track changes. What the heck are you talking about, right? Because you have to be clearly saying what you're doing. And don't use acronyms. If you're going to use acronyms, define them for the first time you use them. So it's important. So I think that's really this. If anybody has any questions about this, even if this one here, NSF lineage, if you didn't get funded by the NSF to do it, go ahead and put it down anyway. Say we did not get funded. The commercialization history is required now, meaning if you get multiple phase 2s, you now have to put a commercialization history in. When it first came out, I put in a proposal, and I didn't have any phase 2s, so I just didn't put anything in. They turned it back. They said, you didn't tell us whether you had any phase 2s, so you have to put up commercialization history. None. I don't have any. But I didn't do that. I didn't have any. But I lost 6 months, 3 months. I lost that window for putting it in. So every single one, even if it doesn't pertain to you, put it in as a subtitle and say, does not pertain to me. Because they're looking through that. And if you don't answer the question, you might get messed up. Yes, ma'am.
Is it the same format for phase 2 proposals, or what considerations you give for phase 2 proposals?
The phase 2 proposal, it's pretty much the same one, except the commercialization is much bigger. So it's not 1 to 3 pages, it's much more detailed. And you also have the final report of your phase 1, which is the feasibility. So you have to discuss how your phase 1 research validates the technology that you were doing and puts it in a position that it can, in 2 years, get you to whatever that funding event is, usually a prototype, but whatever that funding event is. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah, because so you're now much further along your technology. You've got to convince them to put that extra, depending on which agency, $500,000, $250,000, or $2 million in. So it's a much more data dense, both in the commercialization side and the technical side. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, my question was relating the phase 1 grant. If they ask for a business plan or just these parts, do they ask for a business plan?
Not in phase 1.
Not phase 1.
However, you should mention in the commercialization how you think in the future it's going to go, which I believe is the kind of the last thing, your plan and expected timeline to secure other resources. That's kind of your business plan, but it's small. You have a full business plan in the phase 2. Anything else? So this is, yes, ma'am. Oh. She's way in the corner.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Yishara Chandler from Site Immune Therapeutics, and this is really informative. Thank you for sharing. But I was wondering, I'm between the intersection of science and business, and how can we make this less painful while you're reviewing what is your recommendation to make it less painful after using the service of the Science Trust for the submittal of the proposals?
Well, I mean, first thing, the trust will give you great support for writing the proposal and getting the right format to be submitted. I don't believe they go through the uploads, but I think they will if you really need it. These electronic submission sites are pretty straightforward, but my suggestion is, don't at 3 in the afternoon on the day it's due, don't come to us and say, let's put it in. And I'm not even joking. I'm actually telling you a real event. Somebody came to us and, I don't know how to use this, the NIH Assist program. It's telling me I have a bunch of errors. So you go through and, they don't even know how to do it. So you familiar yourselves with the upload system. But we will get you, the trust will get you to the point where you can upload it. So that's not the issue. The issue sometimes is just the pickiness of running the electronic uploads, and each one's different. The NSF uses, it used to be called Fastlane, now it's called research.gov for their submission, and NIH uses Assist. Even though I'm an NSF person, the Assist is much better than it is amazing. But the reason it's so amazing is that it catches all your errors and tells you what they are. The NSF will just kick you back after the fact. So I don't think the SBDC helps with uploads. Do they? Does the SBDC help with upload problems for the electronic submission?
Yes.
They do? So the SBDC could help you.
I'm there to even push the button at this point.
Yeah. So because they're all slightly different. Some of them are really easy, but I really like the NIH one because it catches all your errors so you don't have the risk of an administrative dump back, like I did with the commercialization history one. That was horrendous. The other thing, if you drive the Army, their submission time is 6, but it's 6 a.m., not 6 p.m. Terrible thing to hear when you're finished your proposal. Okay, so are there any questions on what the format of the proposal is? What I was going to do is show you, nobody wants to share their proposals, so I'm going to share with you an old NSF proposal of mine. This is from 2018. So the elevator pitch is slightly changed now, but this is kind of what it looks like. This was for a product for the aquaculture industry, so you kind of describe, the industry and the customer. This is very different than NIH. You notice the customer is first, not the technology. NIH is the other way around. Actually, they don't even, the phase ones of the NIH don't even talk about customer right now. But, so the pitch is, this is kind of what the pitch looks like. It's very short, very sweet, short declarative sentences in saying exactly what the customer is. And the value proposition is how you're going to answer the customer's needs. And this describes, in 250 words, your innovation. And that innovation better not be incremental. It's got to be something new. This proposal was funded, by the way. Okay, so this is what the proposal looks like, and this is again phase one. So you talk about the commercial opportunity, and it's a substantial 2 or 3 pages of what the opportunity is for that particular product. And you need to say what the risks are, what the market, what the win is, so what the metrics will be. The innovation, pretty short, sweet, but it's there. And then the company and team. You have to convince the NSF that if you're a one-person company, this was a 3-person company. One of the guys was a business guy who happened to be my brother. So you have to convince the NSF that you have the technical know-how and the business know-how to get this to market. And for a small company, one person, it's tough. If you are a one-person technical company, try to get mentors from the outside. If you roll down, I don't think we have any mentors. We have one maybe. But if you can get a business guy, if you're only doing technical, get somebody from the outside who can be a business advisor unpaid. You're building a team. You have to show the best light to the NSF and the reviewers that you can actually get this product done. If they don't think you can do it, and I've gotten these reviews, I don't think they can do this. They're too small a company. So, but this is funded. This is a 3-person company, two technical people. It was funded. Can you roll down again? I think we're towards the end. This is a detailed research plan. Tells you exactly what it is you're going to do. And each event in the research plan is outlined and highlighted. So you pull the reviewer's eye to what it is you're doing. And so, like it or not, some reviewers they have a full-time job, they're waiting till the last minute or the weekend before, and they're trying to do 6 proposals quickly. So help them as they're going through to understand your technology, understand what the steps are that you're going to validate that technology. You have milestones, what you're going to do, and milestones, they want metrics. Okay, you're going to do these 3 things. Why are these feasibilities to get your technology in place, right? And so if you just say what your objectives are, and you don't say what the metrics are to meet those objectives and why they're valid, it's not going to work. Now, if I don't know what your technologies are, but you guys have a technology that daisy chains. By what that means is I do number 1, and if number 1 doesn't work, my task number 2 doesn't work. You need to put in pathways to success if number 1 doesn't work. Does that make sense? Because it's one of those things that you're trying to make feasibility, and you have the reviewers. I've gotten this comment from reviewers in the past. I have 4 tasks. If task 1 doesn't work, this whole thing is crap, right? And they won't fund that because what they want to do is, okay, this person has thought what the critical things are, and they've thought of ways around it. So if your technological objective is 1, and number 2 requires it, and it fails, how do you get around that? So you got to talk about that, because they don't want to see a daisy chain collapse. All right, I'm going to get into a discussion of the review panel, but this might be a good time to talk about it. But how the review panels are formed in the NSF, because I'm doing NSF, Marcos is going to do NIH, is that you have usually, they used to be physical, a lot of times now they're virtual, but you have maybe 12 people in a room or on a box of boxes, and half of those boxes are commercial people, and half are technical people. Now, very often, these commercial people include a patent attorney. And that patent attorney is totally focused on IP. Totally. I have actually the same technology. This is a resubmission. The first time it came through, I didn't have a patent filed. I was going to use trade secrets because the whole purpose of what I was doing was designing a product that was built for generally regarded as safe materials, and then I was going to make it in a premix to protect the IP. That wasn't good enough for the patent attorney, so I got killed on that. So if you have a similar issue, all you do is file a provisional application and say you have a provisional. Because a provisional, you can file directly. You personally can file a provisional for $125. $120. You do have to actually register with the USPTO, but that's it, right? So it's worth doing only because you might hit that patent attorney. But you should definitely discuss your IP. I think a disclosure would be less powerful for the commercial reviewers, but why bother? Just put in a provisional. And provisionals are never published, so your technology is never out there. In 12 months, it goes away. And so, but it's $120. All you have to do is fill out the form. I think you have to notarize that you exist as a real person, but that's it. So it's not a big deal. But for your IP, you definitely have to discuss your IP. It's much stronger to have a provisional file. If you don't want to, everybody understands the patent trademark. What they're doing is very sneakily have you expose all your technology. That's what a patent does. If you don't know that, that's what it does. You have to write it all down. At 18 months, it's published, and anybody can see it once it's filed. So if you're going to file a real patent, be darn sure you can enforce that patent. A lot of technologies people don't understand. You publish it, it's published, and people say, well, that's a really good idea. Oh, he or she would never know that I use their technology because there's no way to find it. You know, you have to look at your own technologies, but some technologies, like I'm using, my product only uses generally regarded as safe products that are common in feeds, animal feeds, to make the product. How am I going to prove that they're doing even if they're infringing, how can I prove it? Plus, it costs money. So you need to figure out a strategy to protect your IP, but a strategy to get your grant would be to file a provisional, I would. You can discuss trade secrets. They're okay with that as well. If you're going to do that, tell them how you're going to make sure it stays a trade secret. You can apply it, fine. We're just saying, he was asking, is it important to have, if you say I filed a disclosure, patent disclosure, is that valuable? It probably isn't because it's nothing right now. But if a what?
I received a public notice for my patent.
Oh, you've got a public notice already?
Yes.
Oh, it's fantastic.
That's why
Oh, no, that's fantastic. I mean, if you have a public notice that you have been granted, just say it. That's right. Here's the name, because if it's been granted, that's fantastic. That's a really strong protection of your technology, assuming you can enforce it.
Okay, my question is about patents and universities. Because most of the people
every single
submit the
university,
patent through the university.
Every single university is different. And I can't answer that, but I can tell you generally, they're either really good, the universities are really good, or the universities are really bad. I work with the University of San Francisco, USC, USFF, and we gave up our SBIR because they said, well, I know it's not totally patented yet, but we want all the, if you do any work, we want rights to it. And you say, we're a small business, and it's our small business grant. We are co-inventors. No. And they just they just couldn't do it. I've worked with Stanford. Stanford, on the other hand, they're great. Oh, yeah, it's going to cost you this, so you have to go to university. Unfortunately, a lot of tech transfer offices are really understaffed and underpaid. And what does that do? It gets rid of institutional knowledge. Meaning, so I pay this guy $12 a day, and he quits after a week, right? You've missed that whole week of knowledge that's built up. So it depends on your university. Go to your university technology transfer office and say, do you have any experience licensing a technology? And if they say no, then I would go to the trust, because they're managing a lot of the tech IP right now, and talk to them about it and try to force the issue. I don't know what your university does. Do you? Have you talked to them?
No.
You should. Yeah. I mean, it's essential. If you're a small business or a professor starting a small business, get that going soon, because if they don't know how to do it, it's a real learning experience. And I think the trust is managing a lot of this IP these days for some of the Puerto Rican universities. They can help you. Anybody have any questions? This is kind of what it looks like. Any questions on style, format? The key is to make it easy for the reviewer. We have a reviewer back here right now doing NSF. She wants it easy. It took her 3 days of work time to get these proposals done. It was 3 proposals, right? I did 6 proposals for USDA, and it took me 3 days of work time. It's hard work. And making it simple for these reviewers makes your reviewer much happier and more inclined to like your proposal. Yeah, I had a guy who wrote, I was doing an NIH proposal, a colleague, and to be fair, this guy's very technical. To be also fair, he's very late. My proposal, I was on vacation in the beach in North Carolina, and give me the damn proposal. And so, he finally got his part in, and it was like reading the Encyclopedia Britannica. But I had no time. It was due that day. I couldn't revise it. And the reviews came back was, this thing's written like the Encyclopedia Britannica. It is too dense. I don't even understand what he's talking about, right? So spend some time, make it logical, add in pictures. Don't make it so dense. Be short, declarative, and say what you mean. Don't try to baffle them with technology, right? Say what you mean. And if you're talking about a particular procedure and it is a novel procedure, you need to go into detail. If you're talking about a procedure and it is not a novel procedure, and everybody in the 3rd grade, freshman biology lab can do it, just put a reference. I'm going to do a streak plate. Don't tell them how to do a streak plate. They know how to do a streak plate, right? Because these are experts. These are experts. They know that. So don't overwhelm them with details that are not necessary, but don't overwhelm, but provide them with necessary detail. Because that was the most harsh review I've ever gotten. It wasn't my fault. Mine was good. Okay, any other questions on basically this one? What I was going to do is give you the reviews for this one. And mind you, I did this recently with the proposal. These reviews are not as good as the one that I got rejected, so I was kind of surprised. So what you get is an email from the NSF that either says, thank you for submitting to the NSF. We have not considered your proposal. And NSF is actually very nice, because NSF sends you reviews even if your proposal was rejected. NIH, on the other hand, 50% of their proposals get thrown in the middle of the floor, and you never get a review, just get a letter saying this was not competitive. Marcus is going to go over the NIH, so I'm not going to go into the reviews, but this is what an NSF review looks like. The reviews, I think I described the panel, but what happens is three reviewers are assigned usually to each proposal. Usually at least 1 commercial reviewer and 2 technical reviewers, and they read through and do a detailed review. And this is the detailed review. And their score is either excellent, very good, good, fair, and poor. Normally, a good is a killer. Guess what? This got funded. So that was interesting. So they will go through, and they have particular things they want to address. They have kind of a summary of what your proposal was about, and then they go down. Oh, this was a very poor review. They gave me a good. They didn't really actually do a whole lot of work on it, but that's right. So it basically says, hey, it's good. Summary. Usually these are more detailed. So this was a fair. This is a funded proposal. So when I pulled these up, I was like, what? I actually got a declined proposal I was going to pull up for you, and that got an excellent, a good, and a good. So there's never. You don't really understand why these things get funded, but apparently as I said, all the proposals are excellent. All the proposals are highly recommended, and do not fund. So what they do in the panel is they put them in those three categories. And then they fight over where they should be in those categories. And there's a funding line. I will tell you, just an interesting aside, I'm running out of time probably. My first program, when I was a program officer, my first panel was set up by the retiring program officer. And he put these very dominant, very intelligent, very highly authoritarian women, one who is a CEO of a company and one was ex-chancellor of the University of Texas system. And one gave it an excellent and the other gave it a good. And for your first panel to have these two imposing women fighting, and they would not back down. I just was stuck. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And so there's 8 to 10 people in the panel, so we all discussed it, and we came to the decision to put it in the middle, so that means recommended. And I left that panel just sweating. It was one of the worst panels I've ever run, my first panel. But rarely do you get to a point where people won't budge. What happens is you get these 3 reviews or 4 reviews come in, and we discuss it and come to a conclusion of where this should be put in highly recommended, or do not fund. And so I can only guess, I wasn't at this panel obviously since it's mine, that I was in the middle, and somebody fought, and you had a champion in the panel pushing higher up. That's the only thing. I couldn't remember having a proposal that had a fair getting funded before, so I was surprised at this one. But basically, they went through and so they write the strengths and they strike the weaknesses and they discuss it. And all the panel goes in and asks questions. Even they asked the 3 reviewers that actually reviewed it, what happened at this particular time? And they make a decision, and it's a group decision. The whole panel puts out a panel summary, and that panel summary it's not necessarily actually the reviews verbatim. It shouldn't be reviews verbatim. It is a grouping of the group thought. So this is what this looks like. And at the end, all you do is you say highly recommended, and do not fund. And that is given to the program officer. The program officer walks out and talks with his or her colleagues. And then you know how many grants are highly recommended and how many are recommended. You ignore the do not fund, and then you do basically a line. Down the line, who can get funds. So my guess is that they didn't have a lot of highly recommended that time around, and that's how I got funded in this, but it was nice. It was a nice surprise. And I think that's it. Any other questions that you guys have? Yes, sir. Let me ask your question again, just to make sure I understand. You're basically saying I'm a small business, and what do they require in the way of management of that grant? Okay, I'm a small business. I'm 2 people right now. And what I do is you have to have a very detailed reading of what's done. For instance, mine's very old-fashioned. We have timesheets that we fill out. And then I don't have a bookkeeper. I pay somebody a bookkeeping service, and it costs me $120 a month. And you pay an external person to say, yes, John worked this, and do the paychecks. So it's somebody external. I do physical timesheets. A small business, it's much easier to do a physical timesheet. Send it to that person, keep that physical timesheet, have it signed by you, and if you're a couple people, have somebody sign it for the company. What you have to do, you have to anticipate being audited at some future date by one of these agencies. You might not be. We have never been. I don't want to be, but we have never been. But you have to have a way to document, preferably a third party, how you spent the money, who you spent the money to. It has to be documented. This is just the same as your own taxes, right? You have to be able to prove your own taxes. how things done. Now, if you want to do it yourself, that's fine, but I find having a third party doing it is much easier. This is, it's a small business, but you know, they have like 3 people working for them, and they, you know, all my receipts at the end of the month I send to them, all my invoices at the end of the month I send to them. They do my paychecks. They issue the 1099s if it's 1099s or the W-2s. And they do it for almost, you know, it's very cheap. You know, it's very inexpensive, but yes, I would recommend an external because you have to anticipate getting audited at some point. You might not be, but you should anticipate that. And it's not really that burdensome. It's just you have to have a routine. You just don't pay John an X amount of money with no documentation of why you did it and what he did or she did, you know, right? So you need to have documentation, but it's not that burdensome. We had NIH, and it's not that burdensome. You know, it's just you have to do it. And don't not do it, because I had a grantee who did not do it, you know, and she got audited, and turns out she was paying for her son's tuition to Harvard. He got a visit. Your budget is provided in the grant. It's part of the grant. You have, to file the grant, you have a detailed budget.
Basically, you apply your budget, but you basically write in the budget that you are going to pay an external company to do that kind of job, the management of the grant.
That's overhead. The budget only pays, the NSF budget and all of these, they are paying for research. So for instance, your CEO is not going to get paid on the grant if the CEO is not actually doing the research. However, you do have overhead. If you have a negotiated overhead rate, you can use it as long as it's not over whatever the maximum of the agency is required. However, most agencies have a safe rate, they call it. That safe rate for the NSF, I believe, is still 51%, and I think for NIH, it's 40%. But that is limited. I mean, that is overhead on a modified base, right? So for instance, if you are an STTR, and you're giving half of the grant to University of Puerto Rico and half to your company, that 40% does not apply to the subaward. It applies to yours, because you have no overhead for the subaward, right? Because they're already taking overhead. Does that make sense? Okay, so they're rules, you just follow the rules. Yes, sir?
Nothing that smells like paying for standard management operations of an established business is acceptable.
Correct.
As soon as a reviewer smells that, you're gone. So it has to, everything has to be exactly as you said, has to be related, management operation related to the research.
Right.
As applied to that particular research. And this is particularly important for someone who already has a business, has a very good idea. Hey, make sure that you separate your whatever standard business operations management costs are from your proposal.
It's absolutely right. I mean, they will smell when you're trying to use funds for something that is not research. You know, for instance, if you have 3 business guys on the payroll for a research project, it doesn't smell good. I had one where it had the PI was a scientist, and then it had the CFO for 2% of his time, the COO for 2% of his time, and somebody CEO or something, you know, and they weren't going to do any research. That's not what they did. That's not allowed. Remember what I told you as soon as I walked up there that Juan stole? Small business innovation research, small business technology research. It's small business and it's research. That's what they fund. Here, period. They do have something at the very bottom called a fee. I suggest you take it. That fee is the only little bit of money that you can use any way. Well, no, let's not go too far. But it is something you can use for non-research.
May I? Yes, it's Wendy here.
Oh, hey. I heard it.
I am a compliance officer. I have been working, I am a grant writer, but a compliance officer most of the time. So I would recommend that when you're submitting a grant, it's not that bad if you follow the instructions. but you have to learn how to manage it and prepare a good compliance plan and plan compliance, because they're going to look at what you promised and what you complete or achieved. So if you go step by step, that's the way to go. There are no shortcuts. You have to follow through, and know what they expect from you, so you don't get in trouble. So as important as the work plan is the compliance plan.
They don't really require a compliance plan in the grant, but you should have a plan to comply. That's what I was telling him earlier, is that, a small business, it's really hard to do it internally. So, pay somebody outside to do it. It's usually relatively inexpensive. If it's not, go look for somebody else, right? And get them to do it. It's a third party looking at it, and it's done week to week. Not week to week, pay period to pay period, whatever that is. And then having a compliance officer is really great. I mean, if you're not used to SBIRs and managing grants, have somebody that is, because if you mismanage it, you're in trouble. It's a federal offense. It's a federal offense. Yeah. It's a federal offense. And I actually had, I left a company because they were mismanaging their grants. And I actually went to the NSF. And less than a month later, I was called up to the 12th floor and deposed by the Inspector General. I did not like that.